We'll just do the whole thing. Will just be us silently reading God Country together.
Oh, hey. I didn't see you there.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
What's up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? I'm Johnny Destructo. With me this week is...
My name is Noel.
Noel.
Hi. Hey, are you on that side of me? I'm on this side of you.
Cameras. Oh, shoot, really? Damn it!
Just do this. Like, and my best friend, JD, is right here.
We'll start over.
That's how live works,
right? That's how live works, right? We'll just edit this in post. So I'm Johnny Destructo. This is Noel. We do the CultPop podcast network of shows. Spoiler alert, Gutter Talk with Len the Bat Tribble. Occasionally the Cannibal Horror Cast, which is a horror movie podcast. And so the deal is I have a comic book store. I don't know if you know this, but Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex is a comic shop in Manayunk, Philadelphia, PA, and it's at 4327 Main Street. Thank you so much for asking. And I host a monthly live book club.
Like in person?
It's live.
Yes. Not live streaming, just live.
Not like things are these days. I'm talking about the way back, like last month.
Wait, like when you actually
be in the same room.
Space? Like when other people were breathing within 6 feet of you?
Yeah. You remember.
No. What is human touch?
Ask your grandparents. So yeah, I would do a book club every month at my shop, and we've done like Saga, Paper Girls, Batman, not Hush, Long Halloween.
I think we did both.
And then this month, last night, in fact, we did a book called God Country from Image Comics by Geoff Shaw and Donny Cates. And this is, I want to say, was it 5 or 6 issues? 6-issue miniseries that came out a couple years ago, and it's in a collected edition. So we did this last night. If you're interested in joining us for book club, you can do that. It's the last Tuesday of every month at 8:00. But if you want more information on that, just hit me up. So I'm hearing double. Are you hearing double?
No, I'm just hearing you.
Anyway, so we thought it would be fun to bring you book club. So last night we had 20 participants, and we did not record it because it was our first time doing it, and I was afraid it would be a bit too much. But I thought we could at least touch on the broader strokes of what we discussed last night on God Country. For those of you who weren't able to make it to book club but are still kind of curious about this trade paperback.
Yeah. To add on to, like, we're going to do our best. Like, it's not just us talking about what we thought of the book. We're also going to do our best to summarize other people's opinions discussing this book, because it varied quite a bit from absolute effectiveness to this did nothing for me. So we'll try and capture all of that instead of just be overly biased, because we both kind of dig this book. I don't want to speak for you, but yeah.
How dare you? Don't you dare speak for me.
Here, just move your mouth. I'll do the rest. I love this book so much. My name is JD, and I only eat Brussels sprouts. No? Okay.
That was spot on.
I should have covered my mouth. My name is JD.
So anyway, I have a whole list of questions. I was just double checking. We're actually live.
Oh, that's upsetting.
So let me bring up I always prepare a list of questions for book club, usually about 15 to 20 minutes before book club.
Real prep.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Hey, Noel, how about this?
Hey.
Why don't you tell the people what the book is about?
Oh, sure. You know what?
We're going to spoil the book.
Yeah, we'll probably spoil the book. Yeah. I'll just read the back. Written by Donny Cates with art by Geoff Shaw. A long time ago, out in West Texas, an old man named Emmett Quinlan was dying from Alzheimer's. His son Roy was stuck between being a father to his own daughter and watching his father fade away into a hateful old monster. And, to make matters worse, a giant tornado was on its way to destroy everything the Quinlan family held dear. It was in the wake of this storm, however, that everything would change, for the tornado did not come from this world, and it brought something along with it. From the ashes of his home, Emmett Quinlan stood holding an enchanted and destructible 12-foot talking sword named Valifax. And as long as he was holding on to it, he was back. His Alzheimer's was cured. He knew his own name again and the faces of the people he loved most. Problem is, that sword didn't really belong. Yeah. Problem is, folks, that sword didn't really belong to Emmett, and its true owners would stop at nothing to see it returned.
God Country is an epic, best-selling, and critically acclaimed miniseries about family, aging, loss, and letting go from the creative team that brought you Buzzkill and The Paybacks, and the writer of Redneck, Baby Teeth, Ghost Fleet, and now Thor.
Yeah, and Guardians of the Galaxy and Venom.
Thanos Wins.
That was such a good book.
So I have so many good things to say about all of the books that he's been writing for Marvel Comics. And I was very, very excited to go back and read some God Country. And it did not live up to all of my self-imposed hype. Mm-hmm. But we will get to that in a minute. Let's see. I have a little quote here from Donny Cates. I believe it's from maybe Newsarama. God Country was an idea I had kicking around in my head as far back as 2007 or so. Back then, it was just a silly, what if a hillbilly in Texas found Thor's hammer kind of thing. Not much substance to it beyond the initial concept. I played with it a few times over the years and was never able to get it to move the way I wanted. And then a few years back, I had a fairly profound health issue that changed my life in a big way. After I came out from the other side of it, I'm fine now, I found I suddenly had something to say about life and death and letting go. So do you think that this book is an appropriate response to that? Do you think that it was successful in what he was trying to get across?
Successful as a reader, or like I can't speak to if it was successful for him.
No, for you as a reader.
Yes, it was successful in that regards to me. Like there are for every single person, there's a unique way to talk about loss and legacy and mourning, and this is just a valuable way in and of itself. I thought that this was really effective, and to speak to, so like I read and discovered this prior to reading a good chunk of the Marvel stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I was reading Venom, but I had not read Thanos Wins yet or Guardians yet when I read this. So the idea of it just, my expectations weren't as high as yours maybe were.
Yeah. I feel like I read this a couple of, like maybe a year or two ago before getting to Thanos Wins and Venom and all that stuff, which is very, very big and bombastic and crazy, and really set my expectations a little too high for this book, which is a couple steps back, I think.
I think it's a couple steps back in, and that's like gracious. It's not a couple. It's like, we're talking about like inches. It's a couple inches back only in structure and maybe like pacing. It's like, but when it comes to concept and his main characters, it's just as good as the most recent stuff. I think it's just like over the last like 2 years. When was this released? In 2016?
I imagine.
So like over the last 4 years, he's just a better, more mature writer. Even though the stuff that he's writing now is wildly childish, it's just more well put together.
I'm sorry. While I was looking on the back for the date, I don't know if you can see this. Epic Texan battle fantasy is the genre. Epic Texan battle fantasy.
So we just make up our own genres now?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
But yeah, this was pretty fun. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think the biggest thing that kind of bothered me was maybe how women are portrayed or used in this story. Everything else is big and bombastic and crazy and fun. And a lot of the women in the podcast, or I'm sorry, in the book club last night were like, well, the women didn't really have anything to do. And my personal thing was she just came across, the wife character just came across as naggy. And she's there to freak out a little bit and get upset about stuff. And then eventually everything's fine just because.
She there's only like one scene where she has her own agency in this story. You get a sense that everything that she really has to do is outside of the story or happened before and after it.
Sure.
Yeah. So like when I was reading it, it didn't bother me because it was a slice of it. I assume like this is a very truncated story. It's 6 issues and it's a very small period of time. So I guess I just mentally did the legwork of what happened before. Like I absolutely understood her nagging, because essentially a grandfather or a father-in-law that she doesn't really know at all, or only knows to be a violent person with dementia, or a person with dementia in late stages that is violent, and the safety of her daughter, and her husband is adamant about not seeking professional care and thinks he could do it himself. So just in one page and all of those facts thrown out, her reaction to me didn't feel like it was just driving a plot. I got it. I understood where she was coming from right away. So it didn't feel like nagging. If anything, she was the only level-headed character, even though it was all driving plot. But with that said, this doesn't pass the Bechdel test. There are no female characters with like true agency over this story, which is upsetting. But when I read it's what was it we were trying to say beforehand, or even last night talking with everybody else about it, it's like you can't really dispute that fact. It doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but does that inherently mean that it's a chauvinistic story?
No,
I don't think so at all.
No, I don't think so, and I certainly not. I don't think it's intentional.
No.
It's just something that I've come to notice over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a very specific story about two very specific people, and it seems as though for pacing or for brevity, everything else was pushed aside. The strength or weakness of that, because probably your mileage may vary.
Well, I don't even know if it's about two people so much. It is specifically about fatherhood.
Yeah.
And the different fathers and how they sort of interact with their sons. You've got the main character, Roy, dealing with his son, daughter, but then you've dealing with his father who has dementia. He's got Alzheimer's. And then we've got the pastiche characters who are basically Thor, Odin, and Loki. Yeah. And it's, Odin dealing with Thor, who is very likable in this. He's the first character, the first bigger than life, crazy god character who shows up, and you think it's going to be this big violent showdown. And he's just there to like have a conversation and be like, hey, so you got the sword. I see you've got it there. That's kind of cool. Can I have it back? That'd be great. My dad wants it. So it's
cool.
Yeah. Look at that dude. You think he's going to F shit up. And then he's just like, hey, bro, can I get that sword back? You don't want that sword, do you? So
let me take this off your hands. It'll be all right.
But yeah, basically at the forefront, it's just a story about fatherhood, I think, and dealing with your children.
I completely agree with that. Like it's I asked this question last night, and I don't even think it was really answered. Who is the main character of this story? Mm-hmm. There's a really good.
I thought that was rhetorical. Was there an answer to that question?
No, because the answer to that question is really how you're going to take this story in. Whether you think that the protagonist is Roy, or if you think it's Quinlan, or if you think there is no protagonist and it's really just about fatherhood, almost like a parable about fatherhood, which it could be. I think that definitely shades how you take this story. Because even the end is all nebulous about how. So this is narrated by a grandkid of a grandkid of a grandkid of a grandkid, whose grandparents told them. Yeah. So this could all be absolute bullshit and just be about the nature of storytelling. So I
like how the narrator even says that.
Yeah, is this even real? We're all just stories. And I think that was the biggest takeaway I had. Well, I think it was a Charlie Kaufman movie forever ago. Adaptation. Do you remember that movie?
I do.
I don't know why I'm going to make a reference to this movie, but there was a whole thing about how the whole first 2/3 of the movie was a bit meandering and all in your own head kind of craziness. Mm-hmm. And during it, he's trying to adapt a story, and the adaptation itself, he pretty much is told by the creator of story arcs that all you got to do is wow him with an ending. If your ending is effective, everything else that's wrong or that you don't have a solution for will be forgiven in the moment. Mm-hmm. And I really did kind of feel that with this. Like all of the things that maybe weren't working or were paced poorly or felt kind of off, the last 2 issues of this book are so incredibly effective for me that I just kind of like, all right, cool. Like it was great. You know, like there were genuine emotions and tears in the resolution. Yeah.
That's my favorite. I love having a genuine emotional reaction to a story, especially in comics. I agree for the most part, but I think the only time I was really emotionally moved was during the transference of memory. Between Emmett and Roy. And I thought that was beautiful and lovely. And I really love that bit. But up until that point, I was like, oh, cool. They're fighting. Oh, cool. He's got a sword. Oh, look at that guy. He's got a hammer now. That's fun. Oh, they went into hell. That's neat. Oh, look at that monster. You know, it was just kind of, I was a step away from the story the entire time up until the actual dramatic moment of the transference of memory. So yeah, everything before that was just like big, cool, fun action stuff. Even though what really got me to want to read the book was the Alzheimer's connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was, I from jump, I was emotionally affected. Like just the fantasy of somebody with dementia, achieving their faculties plus back, you know, like that, the way that this character explicitly goes through it, and then imagining how other characters would go through it. You've got this powerful weapon, clutch, but it's a saving grace, but it's a curse. And then seeing him, how he was up until the realization he has a granddaughter, which he had never met before.
Oh, I love that bit.
With his 100% capacities. Yeah. From that on, it was these battles interspersed with really good moments, and to beat the point home from earlier, where had this maybe been written 2 years later, it probably would have been structured a little bit tighter. It would have been, it's amazing acting. Geoff Shaw is just awesome at this book. I think it's more substance, or it's more style than substance, just but like by degrees. And a stronger version of Kate's maybe would have balanced that out better with fleshing out the other characters and kind of creating more backstory. All we are is told a little bit about the backstory between father and son, Roy and Quinlan, and why they are so aggressive towards each other. We don't really get that story. We only get the resolution of that story. But there is a school of screenwriting that really does turn it's explicitly start 10 pages into the scene and end 10 pages before it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like. It feels like we're towards the end of the first chapter, and then they just go right into the resolution, and you kind of have to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with how it starts. I love that when you first get there, you can tell that the wife this has been going on for quite some time, and the wife is at the end of her rope, and that's why she leaves, only to come back immediately. I lost my train of thought.
It was a tornado, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tornado. She comes back to check on the husband because of the big tornado, which had a demon in it.
As they do.
Oh shoot! I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, I didn't mind coming into that late, but that's what it was. It's just that I wish instead of everything happening like this, it's just beat to beat to beat to beat to beat. I wish maybe it took place over a couple of days, so that we had more time to have some interpersonal relationship and work done between the characters during all this.
I wish it was 12 issues or 10 issues. I wish this was longer.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't want it to be longer. I just want it to be spaced out differently. I think 6 issues is fine. We could have gotten rid of maybe one big epic battle, but I definitely wanted them to put in a little bit more character work.
I would have done the other way around. I would have gone like 8 issues and added character work, because I do think that these characters are fleshed out somewhere. It's just not on this page. Giving more pages without minimizing anything else that happens in here, I think would probably. That's how I would armchair quarterback this. You would armchair quarterback.
I would armchair quarterback your armchair quarterbacking and say that while I agree partially with you, you're also very wrong.
Well, I think this is the part where I tell you to fuck yourself.
And we always get there eventually.
We part ways.
What? This was bullshit.
Yeah, die in a fire. Anyway,
so I had questions. Let me see. What are my questions? We already talked about that. How did you feel about Roy and his decision to stay with the father? Yeah. So there's the first conflict of the whole series is basically that the father is being violent, and it took a couple of cops to bring him down, and they finally got him in bed. And then, he comes storming down the stairs, cursing and hooting and hollering and flarring filth. And, the wife, the daughter sees this, the young daughter, and gets very afraid. And so the mom says, yeah, we're going to peace out. We're going to go. You're coming with us, Roy, husband. He's insane. We can't be near this. And of course, Roy's like, but he's my dad. I can't just leave here. And they decide pretty immediately, or she decides pretty immediately to just, peace, I'm out. And, he's got no choice really, as far as he's concerned, but to stay behind and hang out with his father and try to make sure that he is not a danger to himself. But that was so big and abrupt that it felt strange to me right off the bat. And I think in a better circumstance, it would have been, I'm going to take the daughter to a hotel and then we can reconvene at some other point. But it felt like, I'm leaving you. I'm taking the daughter and I'm leaving.
I thought she gave him a choice. Like, I hope you follow.
Yeah.
I thought, but I didn't take it as I'm out, bitch. I took it as, unspoken, make your peace, decide.
Oh, okay. Because I took it as I'm out, bitch. And then, maybe she felt like she reacted too harshly and then decides to come back during the tornado situation.
You know what? I didn't read it that way, but I could see you thinking, or people thinking that she's a weaker character if that's how you took it, or if that's how it was read. I read it more as an ultimatum without making the ultimatum.
Oh, okay.
You have to make the choice. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take our daughter away, and you let us know. Yeah. Not fuck off.
But that's better then. I like that better.
I have to reread it again, but yeah.
It's
an impossible situation. It's an absolute impossible situation.
On the Spoiler Alert podcast, you very often mention that you'd rather be reading these single issues in trade paperback form. How do you feel about this?
Hang on, that's not true.
You've said it a bunch. It's not your go-to, but you say it quite often, more than I say.
There are certain things that I think are paced better for issues or versus trades. I think if I was reading this in issues, the first one, I wouldn't be. Wait, where's the first break? Actually, I would be fine with this.
Yes,
I would continue this because it ends in a spot that is so appealing. It ends with him getting his memory back and the tease of something more. So my issue is with when they've got these like 12-issue stories in mind and they're not thinking about the actual pacing breaks of an issue and waiting 4 weeks between. The best example of succeeding with it is Brian K. Vaughan. Every single end issue, or the end of every issue of Why the Last Man and Saga is always something satisfying and appealing at the same time. Whereas nowadays, like with Batman's Grave is probably the one that is the most obvious. It's like,
all right, Commissioner Gordon, we're about to walk down this hallway. End of issue.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what they mean. Issue ends. Like, well, that's mid-conversation. That's not a cliffhanger. That's literally just stopping.
Yeah.
This doesn't do that. I don't think this does that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think I would have had, this series would have had more emotional heft for me as a reader if I read it in single issues and didn't just blow through the whole thing. I think so much happened so quickly that I didn't really have time to sit with it for a while. Because there is a portion where he literally travels to hell and fights the undead. And there's a whole big crazy, look at that. There's big epic moments in this, but because so many of them happen so close together, it's sort of when you rub something for too long and you're like, it gets numb.
Yeah, this now that you mention it, this series probably does benefit from the 4 weeks in between of just letting it sit with you.
Yeah, I think so.
I can see that.
Yeah. Let's see, what other questions did I have?
Questions.
So Roy and Janie have another fight later where, everything's at its grimmest and they are sitting on the stairs together and he's just sort of whispering himself a prayer to God, right? He's just like, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, blah, blah, blah. And so she looks over and goes, what are you doing? And they have a whole fight back and forth because he was afraid and decided to, say a prayer on the off chance that it might help. And she just berates him, which I think is kind of funny on one regard. But on the other regard, it's more of like, oh, here's that whiny wife again. She's just being a whiny character.
Wait, she doesn't berate him. I'm looking at the scene. She. There's no exclamation points. It's Roy. What are you doing? That's it. They're both out of ammunition. He drops his gun and starts to whisper a prayer and then holds her.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at this. Where'd it go? Look at that face. Look at that.
Oh, that's when they're under siege, right? Because in that scene, she's an absolute badass. She's more effective than him.
No, that's still in the conversation about religion. And then another god came and raised the dead and took our daughter away. And you still believe in Jesus?
Okay, you're right. I was looking at the wrong scene. I was looking at the scene when they were under siege.
Valifax, are you listening to yourself? That was a talking sword. Yeah. She's clearly upset and having an argument with him in the middle of all this. But then on the other hand, you go, there's a lot of shit going on. Maybe tensions are very high. And
I'd freak the fuck out.
Yeah. But, I was just curious, because of that, right? So we have gods coming down to Earth. We have gods staying up in not Asgard.
They're also being attacked by the undead while their daughter has been dragged to hell. Yes. There's a lot of things happening.
A lot of stuff, right? It's, worse than your average Monday. But yeah, so you've got these different gods of all sorts. And then you have religion playing a part by, with the fact that he's praying to Jesus. Do you think that Donny Cates has anything specific to say about gods, or is he just having fun?
I think he doesn't have anything explicit to say about gods, but he does bring up a lot of unanswerable questions as story points.
Yeah.
That one that you're so reading this, I can't really tell if he's agnostic or atheist or anything like that, right, so much as wants to pick and prod at unanswerable questions for story points.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way it wraps up at the end with the idea of us kind of becoming stories as opposed to any kind of real afterlife or heaven, it's just a transference of memories, of energies, of becoming stories to be passed on. I think that is more of a commentary of his on religion or spirituality than the characters arguing about the logistics of religion, because these gods, they're like Kirby gods.
Yeah.
They're new gods. They're not necessarily like celestial beings so much as things that we don't understand, things that are well above our understanding. So it is what it is. Not necessarily he's from heaven, he's from hell. Yeah. It's
very specifically, if you look at the designs, they are very based in heavily steeped in Kirby.
Actually, I think, doesn't Geoff Shaw put a New Gods poster in the background of the...
He does.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Where's it? The references are on sleeves clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which also endears me to it a bit. I'm a sucker for that stuff when it's good.
There was a question I had last night that I posed to the group, and they actually answered it for me. So basically, after Aristus there it is. Yeah, New Gods. After Aristus, who's basically the Thor pastiche, comes down to Earth to talk to Emmett about, hey, dog, can I get that sword? And then they have a very nice back and forth. He eventually goes back to Adam, Attum, Adam, right? Who's basically the Odin character.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, he sends words well known in his realm. He related to me their meeting. They are a kind of battle cry of his people during a time of great historical unrest against a ruler from ... and he says, "Come and take it." And I didn't really know what that was a reference to. It's very specifically a historical reference.
I will look. I'll look it up for you.
I remember what we did this last night. It's the Alamo, right?
Well, I thought so. Let me double check. Fired a little cannon on Mexican troops. Come and take it. Thermopylae. Come and take it is a historic slogan first used in 480 BC at the Battle of Thermopylae, province of Georgia, during the American Revolution. It is definitely a Southern battle cry. And my interpretation of it was the Alamo, where it's, defend this land, come and take it.
Yeah.
The small, and it's a very Texan thing to do, just, like cold dead hands, come and take it.
Well, I mean, you have to include it when you're writing epic Texan battle fantasy. And when you're writing in that very specific genre, you got to have some Texas references, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one or two epic Texas battle fantasies. So.
Well, I guess, would Preacher be an epic Texan battle fantasy? Huh?
It's more of a globe-trotting.
Well, I mean, but a lot of it takes place in Texas. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So talking about Emmett Quinlan, who is, in my estimation, the main character. Originally, I thought it was going to be Roy, but then throughout the series, as it goes further and further into it, I realize it's Emmett Quinlan, as far as I'm concerned. But he's a character who had a wife who he loved and a family, and then his wife dies, and he can't even remember that his wife was dead. And so when he picked up the sword, he had to relive the memory of finding out that his wife was dead. So it's a very, he's a very troubled character, but he also doesn't give up the sword, right? So I don't know if he's in that great of a character, that heroic of a character, when really the main crux, the main conflict of this is the sword comes to this guy. The guy likes having the sword and doesn't want to let it go. And then epic battles happen because he doesn't want to let go of this sword. Do you find this character, Emmett, to be selfish?
I think he's selfish from a motivation perspective, but not selfish to his core. The motivation of wanting to maintain his self is like id, ego, superego. It is selfish. It's a selfish motivation to want to maintain your youth, your beauty, those kinds of things. So it's selfish, but I don't consider it, and it's selfish in like a dangerous or pernicious. Well, it's dangerous, but in a maniacal kind of way, or a pernicious kind of way, where he is actively trying to hurt people to maintain his thing. He's just trying to keep it. And I think that selfishness, that flaw, makes him more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes him more interesting, and I think that makes the end of this more appealing, and it makes more effective. Like he eventually, he doesn't keep the memories. He has to pass on like everyone does, but he is also too, he's chosen by the sword. Other people can't hold the sword just to hold it. Like the sword chose him. So there's got to be, you also have to think like there's a reason that the sword kind of chose him, or someone like him. But he eventually doesn't get to keep the memories, but he gets the next best thing of being able to allow someone he loves to experience them, or the most important aspects of them. So I think his motivation was selfish, but I think it was a noble flaw, not a flaw that is the end of him and he's a tragic character. It's more of like a noble flaw, like a glorious stubbornness.
Well, I mean, it's not even like he's a Superman character or anything, so we don't need him to be so super altruistic. It certainly makes him a more interesting character, and more realistic, I think.
Yeah. I like Emmett.
Yeah, no, I like him too. He's a lot of fun.
Or as you said, he should be played by
Sam Elliott.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
The Marlboro Man himself.
So let's wrap it up with the Geoff Shaw's art. What did you think of the art style here?
I loved it. The opinion last night was all over the map because I do agree, or I do understand his style gets a little loose in some scenes. But when it counts, it really, really counts for me. Like it really, really works. So I'm a fan. I've been a fan of Geoff Shaw. I don't know. What did you think? Yeah, that's the double page spread that was showed last night too. The idea of it shows you perspective of it shows you the stakes in only perspective. So it shows the perspective of the god type characters with him, the sword, but then also like on the horizon coming. Yeah, I love this art.
The art's great. Yeah. I think some of the faces are a little wonky and a little inconsistent, but not so much so that I had trouble. Like someone said last night, they had trouble discerning who certain characters were, and I didn't have that problem at all. I always knew who was who, even though sometimes the faces pull and push in certain ways, and they aren't always the same shape. No, I think the art's great. That being said, Gerardo Zaffino is the guy who, if you look to the back of the trade paperback, you can see the original series designs and concepts by Gerardo Zaffino. And I wonder if he was supposed to be the original artist or if he was just hired to do the designs. But I'm wondering if maybe he was working on it and then didn't get to finish it. So the book got handed to someone else.
I bet he just did the, like as a favor, did the pitch document with him.
Yeah.
With Donny Cates. And then Geoff Shaw came in to actually pencil the book.
That page,
yeah, it's beautiful. But it's beautiful, but it's a different style, though. I don't know if it would be as effective for me.
I wonder. I like Gerardo Zaffino very much. But we were talking earlier. I'm sorry, we were talking last night about how even some of I didn't think some of the facial acting was as effective as it could have been, and I'm not sure that Gerardo Zaffino, with all of the ink work that he does and everything, because I feel like to do really emotive facial acting, if you're one of those artists who are very ink heavy and you use a lot of shadow work, there you go. That's the best panel in the whole book. That face that the grandfather is making is my favorite panel.
It's one of the best, but it's tied
as far as the facial acting is concerned.
It's tied with this acting when he's dying.
Oh, that's nice.
All of this is just spectacular. It's again, when like people are in the background, it gets real loose. When it's multiple characters on the page, it gets loose. But when he needs to deliver, he delivers.
This was a fun one.
Oh yeah, the
Savage
Dragon. Yeah.
But no, I think it's a good looking book. It's dark and gritty and blotchy and smudgy, and it feels dirty and lived in and gross. So I think.
Well, I was gonna say like it feels Dust Bowl-y. It feels like Middle Texas. It feels like there's a sheen of dust on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, it was. I'm definitely going to come back and revisit this at some point. I think when I'm not trying to like cram it in for a book club.
Maybe it was a disservice to read it last minute, but then again, like this book club was kind of
up in the air
for a while. Yeah, because we don't have anywhere to go but home.
Social distancing. So, anybody out there? Let us know what you thought of God Country. If you haven't read it yet, I think it's at least worth going and spending the $16.99. It's definitely worth your $17 plus tax.
Absolutely.
Definitely recommend it. Go check it out. Order it from your local comic book store if you have one. If you don't, get one. In these times, if you can help your local shop out, that would be great. You can do things like if they're still doing mail outs, place some orders through them. They'll mail you your books. Maybe they're doing curbside pickup. If not, there's another way you can help is to buy a gift card. Just call them up or do it through Venmo. Hey, give me a $50 gift card when this is all done, because that'll help them keep their shop afloat until everyone's able to come and shop there. So if you want to help our shop, you can go to, or our podcast, you can go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo. You could follow us on Facebook. If you look up CultPop Podcast or Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex. And my Twitter is @JD's Hero Complex. Noel, where can the people find you?
You can find me on social media, on Twitter @Mr. Bartocci, MrBartocci. And to piggyback on all your stuff, we're trying to be, because we can't be in person with each other, we're trying to be a lot more active on social media, as well as on YouTube, on Facebook, maybe doing more live stuff, like really just trying to engage more, because we're all struggling for community human contact. Yeah. So like and subscribe everywhere you can, so you're alerted when we come on here and try and have conversations with everybody.
Oh, and if you have any tips, listen, I'm new to this stuff, man. I've been doing podcasting for almost 10 years, but as far as streaming live and doing YouTube and all that stuff, I'm still covered in placenta. I'm so new. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to make this better, more palatable to watch, if I need to wear a silly hat, I don't know. What are the kids into? Probably silly hats. Let us know.
Less glasses for glare. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, I do have a lot of glasses. Oh,
stupid. Anyway, do you want to mention what the next book is?
Oh, right. Yeah. So
I have it over here. You want to grab it?
Go grab it. I'll tell the people. You go grab it. So as we mentioned earlier at the very beginning of this, my shop does a book club the last Tuesday of every month. But because last night was so successful, we did it on an app called Zoom. A lot of the people were like, hey, instead of just doing this once a month, can we do it every other Tuesday? So we're going to be doing it in 2 weeks. So Noel, what is the date for that? Oh, I should have had this prepared. I'm bringing up my app right now. Today is April 1st, so it's not the 7th, but the 14th.
Mm-hmm. April 14th.
So April 14th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you hop on Zoom, if you can, I don't know. I don't actually know. Can you just hop on Zoom and find us? I don't know.
No, what they could do is if you on our CultPop Go Facebook page is also a Facebook group of JD's Book Club, where you can become a member, just to invite to the book club. And then you'll get the announcements of when we're meeting and talking on things through Zoom or Facebook Live.
Yeah, if you look on Facebook, it's called JD's Hero Complex Book Club. So just, it should be public, so you should be able to just join it.
We can link it at the bottom of this video.
We'll do that. Oh, look at that. We're getting better already. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sorry, we're going to be talking about Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. I forgot the most important part. By Mirko Tamaki and
Valero O'Connell.
Thank you. And it looks like a teen romance.
Yeah, it's not my wheelhouse, which makes me kind of excited to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something new.
But all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk at you later.
Bye.
Ah! How do I turn it off? How do I stop it?
Probably should have figured that out.
Stop stream? Yes.